Hey guys, welcome to version 1.1 of the Venn pod. We already recorded our first episode, but we're learning things, so we had some audio issues we had to fix. So here we are back for the better version of our first episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Look who is on the other screen. Alex, say hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex, as you all know. But let's get into it. Why a podcast, Hannah?
Why a podcast? Well, Alex, I feel like we have had a lot of really interesting experiences in the world of clarinetting and also navigating some of those experiences together. We thought that we would come on here, share our thoughts, stories, opinions, and experiences with all of you.
And to kick everything off, we're going to go straight into it. Grad school, master's auditions, and DMA auditions.
We have had a time, guys. This has been a semester for the both of us. Like, it has been a time, like, so stressful, but also really rewarding, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so. And let's just give you guys an idea what we will be talking about. It's kind of going to be like the three parts to an audition, right? It's the preparation, it's the actual audition, and then it's the waiting / results are out process. Navigating how you make a decision. Well, at least how Hannah and I have made decisions on where we are going. I'm at where I am currently. Yeah, so we'll just go right into it and we'll do it the same way we did it on version 1.0.
You don't know that, but we know that.
We know how it went, and Hannah gets the first question, right? I'm gonna give it to you. Let's go.
Oh, hit me, girl, hit me.
Okay, so what schools did you consider and why?
I considered 6 schools for my graduate studies, and I wouldn't recommend that anybody do that. That's a lot of schools to try and take on in one audition season. The reason I chose to apply and audition at 6 different schools was that I didn't have a super realistic vision of where I stacked up in the world. Alex and I both went to Messiah University. It's a small Christian institution, and so while we've gotten a lot of really great leadership opportunities there, and we were very well-rounded players because of going there, I just didn't know how I stacked up because the biggest our studio has ever been at Messiah is like 6 people. And so being the best out of 6 doesn't really give you a good idea of, how you are in the world of clarinet players. So I didn't want to be left without an option. So I auditioned and applied at 6 different schools so I would have choices. Yeah. And in that, I was considering both professor and the name of the school. I think both are valid things that you have to consider when you're applying to grad school. So I was fortunate enough to be able to take a lesson with every single professor at the schools that I applied at. So learning from them and then also getting to know the reputation and the prestige and the opportunities of the school were ultimately the 2 things that kind of guided me towards my decision. So that's the short answer to a very long process that took all semester and was interesting at times. I'll ask you the same question, Alex. What schools were you considering this time around, and what drew you to them? Name, professor, both?
Yeah, so kind of the same situation. It was a combination of the name of the school. And when we say name of the school, let's use like the most dramatic example, like Juilliard. I didn't apply there, but I think that kind of gives people an idea of what we mean by name of a school or name in general. So I considered both the name, the professor, but then another thing I considered was, is it the culture of the school?
Absolutely.
Like, you think? Because I'm trying to like refer to the fact that like some schools are like strictly classical, some are contemporary. So I guess we could call it the culture or music scene of the school, the vibe. The vibe of the
Well.
school. So, like Hannah mentioned, I also went to Messiah, which is a small private school, and I would say it's mostly classical, right? I feel like I was strictly classical, and I didn't have a problem with that. Like, that's what I wanted personally, even though my professor wanted me to get out of it. However, my senior year or so, I still, I still wanted to be a classical musician, but I knew for masters I didn't want to. So, when considering a master's program, since I'm going to be going in my DMA, I'm currently a master's student, I wanted to be in a contemporary institution because I feel as though as a musician in today's day and age, especially a clarinetist, it's so progressive in the sense that if you aren't what I would call a well-rounded musician, meaning that you are able to play extended techniques, different genres, like just being fluid across all borders, basically, you're going to have a difficult time landing opportunities the way you would if you were fluid in all of those areas. Like if I was just strictly classical, not only is it more competitive, it's also not as fun. I know. Who would have thought I would have said that? But yeah, it's not as fun. Like being able to do more is just what I wanted. So, with that being said, it was name, professor, and the vibe of the school is how I'll call it.
Good answer, good answer. And that's a really important thing to take into consideration, because like you said, it's more important these days to be able to do it all, or else you're just not going to get jobs, you're not going to get called for things. So Alex, in preparation for your DMA auditions, what did you prepare? Number one, how did you decide what you were going to take with you? And number two, how did you prepare? How did you practice for being in an audition setting?
Yeah, so I'll start with the last one, the how, because that's the hardest part. Both Hannah and I, regardless of what level we were auditioning for, we're still students, we're working, and we have a personal life. That's three things we have to balance on top of an audition that will determine what we do for the rest of our life. Okay, that's dramatic, but basically.
I was going to say, Alex, a personal life? Come on. Come on.
I like to watch Netflix. I call that my personal life.
It's all about balance, guys. We try.
It's called
really hard.
self-care. It's called self-care.
Yes.
But yeah, so I need to balance how I'm going to watch Netflix on the weekends, right? So
Priorities.
here we go. My preparation, not musically, but research, starts the last semester before I audition. So, example, if I'm a senior in college or about to be a senior in college, the spring semester of my junior year is when I'm doing the research. Why? Because I need to discuss repertoire not only with myself, but with my professor for some like secondary advice. And then also, I just need help. Like if I want to work on this all summer, if there's some things I need to work out, I need to ask that ahead of time, because during the summer, yes, you can email your professors, but it's not the same as just being in the office with them. I know things changed with the RoRo, the panoramic as you call it. But yeah, you could do things over Zoom. So whether it's your Zoom lesson or your in-person lesson, I say the spring semester before your senior fall is when you should be asking those questions. Yes, you still work on it during your fall semester, but that's a lot of rep you need to get down on top of the fact that you may have a fall recital like Hannah did. I mean, I also did too in my undergrad. But doing all of that research, that doesn't go into the cloud. That goes into an Excel spreadsheet. Both Hannah and I don't even think I told you I use Excel spreadsheets. Maybe I did. But yeah, we both use Excel spreadsheets, and it's kind of like, I guess you could go into more detail. Top row, name of the school. Underneath that, deadlines. When are these auditions due, applications due, whatever it may be. Because depending on the situation, you may have to submit a full video if you can't travel. Typically, those are due December 1st because they're, I don't know, not cheating, but it's an easier way out than going in person, I feel like, to a certain extent. So yeah, you have deadlines you need to be aware of. You have repertoire that you need to be aware of. You have application processes that you need to be aware of. For music schools, I don't know if many of you know this, but there's two applications. There's the general graduate school application, and then there's also the music school application. You need to make sure you have all of these links in line. If you're an international student like me, you have additional forms that you need to fill out too. You need to get all of these links in that Excel spreadsheet underneath each of these schools you're looking into. And another thing that Hannah mentioned last time, and you could go into more detail, is like these pieces to a certain extent cross over. So a lot of the schools require similar things, right? So organize it in a way where it's easier to understand, easier on the eye, and less stress. In terms of practicing, it's time management. Musicians could go either one or two ways. It's either you're organized or you're not organized. I'm organized. I don't have time to not be organized. We have too much going on. And then what's the first question you asked me? It was...
I said, what did you prepare? So like now you're to
What?
the point where you've strategically picked out, okay, I need this for this school, this for this school. What are some things that you were using for across multiple auditions and stuff?
It's never new rep. It's never new rep. That's my simple answer. And you could talk about it more, but you have previous recitals rep, and then you also have standard rep. Like high chance they're gonna call Mozart. High chance they're gonna need a sonata. High chance they're gonna need a solo clarinet piece. First things that come to my mind are Brahms and Stravinsky for at least masters. But things are changing, and solo clarinet kind of like is out there. Like the rap is a little bit harder than Stravinsky in my opinion. Stravinsky you still need to know, but it's a little bit more out there. So same questions for you. What rap did you use? And you could keep going on to tie into the other points.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Alex said, I was not using new rep. And kind of like she mentioned earlier in her answer, I was also preparing a senior recital program because I'm a music ed major, so I knew I was going to be student teaching in the spring. Don't want to be preparing a senior recital in student teaching, so I had to do that in the fall. But while I was picking my senior recital rep, I was doing so with grad school in mind. I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to need an extended technique piece or two to take to my grad school auditions. So I threw a couple extended technique pieces on my senior recital. I also had a multi-movement Carmen fantasy the Pablo Sarasate one. Oh, so fun. But I was like, oh, if I need a showpiece or a contrasting piece to my extended technique, this shows off like a more classical side of my
You
playing.
did that instead of Rigoletto?
No, I ended up using Riggy instead, which
Okay, I'm like, Hannah.
no, I used Rigoletto for a competition 2 years ago,
But
and
you won.
I
Wait,
didn't win with Riggy. I won with Poulenc. That's our studio's lucky piece. Poulenc got Alex into grad school. My teacher won the competition with that piece, and I won the competition with that piece. But I just kept using pieces that I knew. And some people might be like, oh, well, that's cheating. That's like,
no.
I'm like, no, work smarter, not harder. Like I did not need any more stress in my life at that point. Plus, they were pieces that I knew really, really well. And because I had learned them and I was able to like clean them with the new skills and musical maturity I have standing here now, they got better over time. And so whenever I like took these pieces to my audition, like the one teacher asked me, she was like, how long have you been working on this? And I was honest with her. I wasn't gonna lie. I was working on Poulenc. I said, well, this has been with me for 2 years. And it sounded like I'd been playing it for 2 years. Like, so why would you not put your best foot forward and like take things with you that you feel comfortable with, that you know inside and out? That shows that you're able to show yourself off way better when you're with something or you're playing something that you're completely comfortable with. So on that, take pieces you know. Don't be afraid to dip into your back pocket, because why did you learn them in the first place if you were never going to play them again? The other thing that I wanted to touch on, like Alex said, is working smarter, not harder, in the fact that like you need to pick pieces that cover multiple requirements. So like if one school is asking for a solo clarinet piece, but another school is asking for a solo unaccompanied work 9 minutes in length, then you need to pick a solo unaccompanied work 9 minutes in length that you can also use over here for this school. Like play the game, play it smart, play it in a smart way, and it's really important to have that spreadsheet like Alex said. So like you have your schools you want to go to. It's really important that you're like, okay, here, 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 and here. Oh look, this piece that I've had in my pocket for 2 years can fit this requirement, and this requirement. Done. And that's one of the most beautiful things, and honestly one of the most like life-preserving things that you can do in your graduate audition search. And this kind of goes into the preparing as well. Once you have those pieces in a place where you feel like you're ready to audition, I actually am a really big fan of playing for other people. That hasn't always been the case, but I love to just pull random people into my practice room, say, hey, I need you to listen to me play the Mendelssohn Scherzo. I just need to have somebody in the room so that I know that I can still tongue when I'm nervous. And so I'll just pull random people in. Sometimes I'll call one of my friends who goes to grad school in Colorado. I'll call her. I'll have her listen to me. I've even played for Alex over the phone before. Like, have other people have ears on your music. That's a really great way to practice. And I got this tip from a percussionist. He used to run laps around our building to make himself nervous before his recitals so he could practice playing while he was shaky, so he could practice calming himself down. And I do that too. I literally reserved the recital hall the week of my senior recital. I ran laps, I played a movement, I ran laps, I played a movement. And so when I got to the day when I wasn't like out of breath, I did fine. I was like, oh, I have all this oxygen. What am I going to do with it? So when I got to the day of my performance, I was totally fine. So, I mean, it sounds scary and it sounds weird to run around or, do some Chloe Tang in your practice room, but do what you have to do. Do what you have to do to feel prepared. That's going to make all the difference on the day. So Alex, question for you.
Uh-oh.
Pre-screenings. Did you have a lot of them, if any of them?
Surprisingly, no. And I think both you and I realized this together. Like, I don't know why. Okay, wait. Yeah, we realized this together because I'm thinking back to my master's audition. I had pre screenings for one school. Yeah, one school. And for DMA, I just assumed it was the norm. Not a single one required. So, yeah, I was kind of shocked that pre screenings are not required. What is, for me, what I had to do actually was submit my full auditions because a lot of the times travel is expensive. So, I strategically chose which schools I want to travel to in person because there's power in doing that, right? Even if we're thinking in today's world, Zoom auditions, there's power in doing a Zoom audition or in-person audition. It's the chance to meet the professors, is a chance to in a way understand them, like their style of teaching, because a lot of the times you have an audition and sometimes there's a conversation occurring. Sometimes there's a little bit of feedback going on, right? Like you just never know what's going to happen in that audition room. And I feel like that kind of ties into something that we have later, which is the power of building a connection with the professor before the audition, right? I told you this specifically. If you have questions about repertoire or anything, email the professor. Introduce yourself. Make it be known that you are a prospective student. Why? Because when you audition, they kind of know you. You're not a complete stranger. Less nerves on your end and possible opportunities for you as well. Scholarships, anything. So, what about you?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree. We both realized this at the same time. Like I said, I think I like even texted you. I was like, Alex, I only have pre-screenings for one school. And you were like, what? No way. Check again. I don't believe you. And so then I emailed all the professors, and that was actually a really great in for me, or like a really great way to make that connection because it shows that I was being conscientious about my preparation for the process. And then a happy thing happened. A happy thing happened whenever I reached out to those professors. All of them were like, hey, do you want a free lesson? And I was like, why the heck not? Like, absolutely. And so then I got the chance to know the professor in a lesson setting, like Alex was saying, and I could demonstrate in my auditions that happened later that I was teachable. I took their feedback that they gave me in my lesson and I applied it to my reps. So I not only was I like furthering that connection by doing that, but I was also showing them, hey, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn from you. I'm admitting that I don't know it all, but I'm excited to learn and like take the feedback that you have given me and make myself a better player with it. And so I just cannot emphasize that enough. Make a connection with the professor early on, even if you're not sure if you want to go to that school. Still reach out. All right, still reach out to them and just clarify because it speaks volumes about you as a person, about your organizational and preparation priorities, I guess. And then it also opened doors for you later, like taking a lesson.
I have something to add to that because we didn't even mention this on our 1.0 version. You could meet professors in other ways too. I think both you and I met professors that we auditioned to for our master's program through camps, summer workshops. You would be surprised because when you have a summer workshop, you actually do have applied lessons, as us musicians call it. You're with these professors for like daily lessons ish. Like it's short, but you're still like one-on-one conversing with them. You send an email that has your photo. They recognize you. They're like, oh, that's so and so who attended. But you still need to include that in the email in case they forget, right? There are other ways in which you could connect with professors, or if you are thinking about studying with that professor and they teach at a summer camp or workshop, try applying to it. They're expensive, not gonna lie, so that's just an alternative. I haven't attended much, but the one that I did attend helped me quite a bit, if I do say so myself, and I feel as though you too, we know where we've been. But yeah, to keep going though, the audition. What was this was your first time audition? This is my second time, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm in there just a little bit, still nervous, but I knew what to expect. How is it for you?
I had three kinds of auditions this semester. I had auditions that were in person, completely in person. I had auditions that were video submission, and then my most stressful audition of the semester was a live Zoom audition. And that was crazy because number one, they were 5 minutes early. They let me into the room 5 minutes early. I was like, what is this? We're never early. Okay. And then I opened the call and there's like 20 people on the call. I'm like, why is everybody showing up to my audition? Who cares? Apparently they did, or they had to be there. And it was wild. Like, I had a 15-minute time slot, and they said, hi, tell us what you're playing today. So I told them, and they were like, let's hear this. Let's hear this. Okay, thank you. That's enough. Let's hear this. How about this next? And so I literally just, like, played stuff for 15 minutes straight with no feedback, no dialogue, nothing. Just like, thank you. That's enough. Let's hear this. And it was so stressful because I didn't know if it was, like, a good stop or a bad stop. But because I had practiced being nervous, I had practiced, like amping up my nervous response, my adrenaline and stuff, I was okay. Like, I could calm down. I was weirded out, but like I was able to calm myself down in the moment. And that ended up being my best audition of the season. That one did, and I was really happy about that because that was one that I needed to go well, and it did go really well. So that was probably my weirdest one, but I actually experienced all three this semester. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, over the master's and DMA process, in person, Zoom, and video submissions, I did my first Zoom, also live audition, and it was actually a lecture audition. Point is, I had to talk, I had to do research about the pieces, but it was, did you want to talk before you performed, or did you want to talk after? I chose before. Get the nerves out early. Let me get to know you. But it was also a 15-minute time slot. And something I wanted to say, like, regardless of whether it's an in-person audition or a live Zoom audition, it's so funny because there's so much happening, right? Like, they're sitting in front of you or on the screen. You're playing, looking at your music, knowing that they're going to stop you, but you just don't know when it's going to happen. So you're just there playing, waiting for them to say, stop. And you're like, literally, like, you just don't know what to do until you turn around and they're like, thank you, next one. I'm like, okay, this is so-and-so. Stop. It is so weird. But for Zoom auditions, I will say I did a practice audition with my mom. So I sent her a Zoom link. I set up my audio settings because for musicians, you need to have like certain settings on so it doesn't cut in and out. That was part of the preparation I did because I know this audition that I did via Zoom was an important one as well. So I needed it to go well. I tested the audio so that when I'm in the audition, it's not a, hey, your audio's messed up type of thing. So they did ask me beforehand if my settings were what, X, Y, and Z, whatever, because they also wanted it to go smoothly. So yeah, that was what my audition experiences have been like. But I do want to add, for the in-person ones in my master's, I encountered some interesting scenarios. The first one being that I went to a school that didn't require me to have orchestral excerpts. And with that, in my audition, this is the second thing that happens, and there's students sitting in there, like just 3 to 4 students sitting in there with the professor, conversing with me as if this isn't the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. Literally. But anyways, so at the end of my audition, the professor goes, do you have any orchestral excerpts with you? And I literally went, yep. Because in my head, I'm like, you don't say no. And because most schools require orchestral excerpts, I did have some prepared, and I did have them with me because I was actively traveling to and from different schools to audition. So I said, yes, I do have it. I have this, this, and this. 3. That's it. Pick and choose. That's it. On top of that, they also asked for scales, which could be a hit or miss for masters, but some schools do actually play scales, so know your scales. I knew that about a certain school, but none of the ones I applied to required it. But I knew to get my scales in line, I was like, I need at least a major, a harmonic minor, a natural minor, and a melodic minor. Let's do it. I said, I just need those 4 and we'll figure out anything else, right? But yeah, so that's something to think about when you go to an in-person audition, maybe over Zoom too, but it's just having things readily available in the instance that it's asked for.
Absolutely. And like you want to show in your audition, like you want to present yourself in the most like professional and most positive light possible. And saying no like shows that you're not prepared for any scenario, and it shows that you're not willing to be flexible or to like take a risk, which is obviously really important for what we do as musicians. You've got to be able to be flexible. Got to be willing to take a risk sometimes. And so I took Alex's advice on that one big time. I made sure that I had extra excerpts, and I actually brought wind band excerpts with me to most of my auditions as like backup material in case they wanted anything. I figured that would be like a good contrast to my orchestral stuff and offer just a different like kind of playing than the orchestral stuff would demand. So I second that. Always be prepared.
Yep. So now auditions are done. Let's get to it. You've heard back from schools. Now where do you want to go? How did we navigate this? I'm going to say we because we went through this together.
We did go through this together. So it was really, I thought that once I had my results and I heard back from all 6 that I would be so happy, because then I would know. I was not happy. Alex.
Let's interject. Hannah had an interesting scenario where she was still auditioning 2 schools that she really wanted to go to while already having amazing offers. Let's go into details, Hannah. People want to know this because results typically come out around the same time, right? Yeah. Some weird reason, you got them like, what, a week or 2 after, I feel like?
Yeah, so like I was getting, I mean, the process to applying and auditioning at 6 schools takes a while, as one might imagine. So I was already receiving like financial offers and like notified of admissions from other schools while I was still in the audition process, which was really weird. It was really crazy. So, I received like TA offers, like with full rides and stipends from like 4 of the schools that I auditioned at. And so I was like getting news of this while I was still auditioning at other schools. And it kind of like made me wonder. I was like, okay, if I can like get in and audition and be given this award at this school, then what would happen at this school? Not that the schools that I was getting TAs from were bad schools. There was just more opportunities and more experiences for growth, I feel, at the other schools that I was still auditioning at. So, I ended up walking away from the schools that offered me full rides and TA stipends, which looks so dumb on paper because these schools were so generous and like they looked like really great offers, but I ended up going with UNT, which did not give me a full ride. I'm gonna have to like actually pay to go there, like out of my own pocket, but I just know that the experiences and like the worth of my degree is going to hold up more in the long run at UNT than it would maybe at some of the other schools that I went to. We said on the last podcast that we want our degrees, our respective degrees, to age like wine, not milk. Like we want it to hold up with time. We want it to prepare us for everything that we have ahead. Oh my gosh, Alex is dying, but it's true. That's why I chose UNT in the end. And so that was a really hard thing for me to do. I called Alex multiple times in the navigating the, deciding process. I was like, Alex, I don't know what to do. I'm so stressed. Blah. And she was like, Hannah, what do you want? And I was like, how have I auditioned at 6 schools and not thought about what I want? And so she asked me, what do you want? Like, what do you want to be doing after this? And the answer for me was I want to be gigging, but also teaching in a middle school or high school band position. I also want to be conducting. And so once I answered that question, I was like, well, then there's a no-brainer school for you. And that was UNT for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I knew Hannah's response, I think, before Hannah knew her response. Because that's a question you have to consider even when you're, well, for us, making this Excel spreadsheet, right? We don't only list the schools in which we really want to go to. We list options. And at the end of the day, this is something you have to consider because applications are expensive. If you're international listening to this, our fees are even more expensive. So it's not like you could if you have it. You could apply to 6 schools, but in reality, I typically do 3 to 4, right? Because it's still expensive, but it gives me a variety. It's like reach schools, okay schools, and then I'm in type of schools. Although I didn't really do any of that. But something I considered as well that my professors actually asked me because they asked me a question that I asked Hannah too, but it was mostly for me because it's DMA and it's kind of a little bit more scary. They said, well, where do people get hired from? And I was like, what? Don't people get hired from everywhere? And they're like, well, what's the schools that have a good reputation for a DMA clarinetist graduating and getting a collegiate professor job? I said, tell me. And my professor starts listing these schools, and I'm like, okay, they're on my list. But they weren't like priorities, they were just options. But now they're priorities because that's something you need to consider. You don't need to go somewhere where people aren't getting hired from. Yes, people get hired, but when you start to look at a lot of the professors teaching, you see trends. Where did they go? I feel like that's a simple thing. And I started seeing some names just popping up over and over again. And I was like, okay, this is where I need to apply. But in terms of my decision, I feel like ultimately I thought of where people get hired from. But in addition to that, it was money, right? I have been in school for a hot second, and I needed funding. I just wanted and needed funding. So that's what I sought after. Thankfully, I wasn't in a situation like Hannah where there were schools, I feel like, of varying degrees. Like there was some like top notch and there was some like okay schools. Mine were typically all on an equal playing field in terms of professor, in terms of name. So that really wasn't something I needed to consider that much. So it helped me. When the money came in, it was kind of like, okay, where's the best deal? So I will say money had a big role to play, but then also the living situation, because that's something that we tend to forget, and it's the living expenses. Rent is expensive. I mean, I emailed one school and they replied with like all these details, and then they included housing, which I didn't even think of asking them. They were like, yeah, you should reserve about $10K a year for housing, and that's for people who don't have high expectations. I was like, $10,000? That's more than I'm gonna be paying for tuition. I said, let's rethink this, because those are things that you have to consider. Like, school is expensive, especially at the DMA level where you've been in school for a long time, right? Like, this is not a long degree, but undergrad is 4, master's is 2. Now we're adding another year, 3. Some schools have 4 for DMA. So it's just something I had to consider. Ultimately, I chose a school that gave me the best offer. And like I said, it wasn't a situation where I had to be concerned on if I was going to get a better degree or more opportunities or not. I knew I would get good opportunities regardless of where I went. In the 2 options that I had, well, I had several, but the 2 options that I cared about, that really wasn't a factor. So ultimately, it did come down to money. But it was difficult because something that I wasn't aware of is that you might enter a negotiation process. If the schools are really interested in you, especially for DMA, you'll start to see a little bit more funding being available. Masters tends to not have as much, but for DMA, they typically try to help a little bit if they could. So the scholarships in which I was awarded were special talent, so from the music school. And you get your initial offer, okay, cool, sit on it. Do not respond fast. And I'm telling you this because this is what my boss told me, so I'm giving y'all the loop. But like in simple terms, don't respond fast. If these professors really want you, they're going to contact you to see where you stand. If they contact you to see where you stand, they want you and they might have more to give to you, right? So I remember I was accepted to one school in particular that was like top 1 and 2 for me. 1 and 2 were side by side the whole time. This school didn't give me anything. So then the professor contacted me and asked where I stood. I said, you're at the top as well as this school, but this school gave me more, so I'm leaning towards them. So they asked me, what do I have to like compare to? And I kind of told them straight up. I was like, I have this, I have this, I have this. They're like, oh, let me see what I could do. That same week, offer in. First offer, now we're breaking even. Actually, the school that gave me something, I would have had to pay more hair and less hair. So things are looking good, right? So I'm still sitting on the decision, waiting it out, asking about academic scholarships, because as an international, you don't get financial aid from state schools because you don't qualify for FAFSA, is what they call it. So I'm inquiring about academic scholarships. And school A that offered me the initial offer is wondering why I'm still waiting, why I haven't made a decision yet, because what they offered me was really good, but now I'm being offered something better. So here's the counter offer. They see me waiting and they want my response. That's when you know these professors want you. And it makes you feel good too as a musician, because you want to be somewhere where the professors want you, right? Like you want to be somewhere where the school really, really wants you. So now we have a counter offer. But here comes the next counter offer, because I'm still waiting. I didn't reply to them and they also gave me good. So it's a waiting game. The quicker you respond, chances are you aren't going to be offered as much unless you were offered a TA right away. And that's because funding is tight for schools, one. And two, if they could offer you less, like let's think street smart for a second. If they offer you less and you say yes quick, that's less money they have to give to you. Did that make sense to somebody listening, Hannah? You know what I mean? It's like if you say yes so fast, chances are you're not going to be offered more. Like once you say yes, your offer does not increase. That's why we have what's called an offer deadline, so application deadlines and a certain time, because within this whole time frame, your offer could increase or stay the same. So yeah, it's a whole negotiation process for DMA applications, which I never knew about, but I was made aware of, and I took advantage of that because it's expensive studying. But yeah, sorry, I talked a lot. Oops.
No, that's all good stuff. And I mean, it was a negotiation process for me too. Once I like made the professor at the initial school that I got an offer from aware, I was like, "Hi, I really want to come here, but I need some more money because I have a really competitive offer from another school." And she was like, "Oh, okay, well, here's an academic scholarship. You've got good grades. You would qualify immediately." I'm like, "Great, thanks so much. Perfect." So don't be afraid to negotiate in a professional way. Like, you have to market yourself well, because if you don't believe in your worth and your ability to go to that school at a price that is good for you, like if you don't believe that you're going to contribute to that school in a positive way, why should they give you more money to come there and not contribute? You know what I mean? So you got to be able to like speak for yourself and advocate on your own behalf so that you can, get where you want to be, and get someplace that's going to give you opportunities.
And something you said is very important: in a professional way. You don't bombard professors being like, "I need more money." No, send a professional inquiry.
Yes.
Do not demand anything, because you're not owed anything. Like they don't have to give you anything. It's kind of like, this is part of the audition process too that I didn't mention. When you audition over Zoom or in person, they also got to know you, believe it or not. They were reading you the same way we read people to be like friends or whatever, right? They were reading to see if you are a good fit for this studio, not only musically, but as a human being. So your impact means a lot, because they never met Hannah and had coffee with her, but they're like, "Oh, we like her musically as a person and her grades. So here you go. Here's more money." And so, yeah, do things professionally. Do not demand anything. Send a simple inquiry. And if you do have a competitive offer, make that known.
Yeah, make that known honestly. Like, don't like try and like,
Don't lie about it.
yeah, because they talk. Like, they talk.
I
Like,
feel like they do. I don't know for sure, but I feel like they do. Maybe
oh, they have to.
Whatever.
Maybe someday, Alex, will be in the collegiate clarinet professor group chat.
Literally. And then I'll be like, Hannah.
Really? You offered them this? I wanted them. I'll be like, sorry.
But yeah. So I feel like that's all that I really have to say about results are out. What else do you want to add?
I just want to say that I think this is pertinent for people, because I'm a people pleaser. I don't know about y'all, but like I struggle with like wanting to like make other people happy. So I had a lot of like really well-meaning people in my life trying to influence my decision. My parents are music educators, and they like started out not wanting me to go to the school that I went to. They were like, "No, like these schools have better offers." So like I would just say be careful about who you let into your circle and who you let influence your thoughts and decisions. I mean, I trust my parents. I love them so much. I know that they were acting out of what they, thought was best for me. But I was really tempted to choose something that I knew deep down was not the right decision for me based on what other people were trying to tell me. So I would say keep your circle small and be very choosy about who you share your struggles and your experiences with, at least in the audition admission stage, because that's such a stressful, really emotionally charged time. And you don't need everybody's opinion trying to influence your decision, because in the end the decision has to be yours because it's your life and it's your career. So only you can know what's best for you and what's going to get you to where you want to be. And I know Alex has something that she wants to say about
How did
keeping
you
your circle
know?
small.
How did
Girl,
you
I know
know?
you. I know you.
Literally, see, something that people don't realize is that there's different personality types, and there are people who are very like, I don't want to say it's show off, but I'm gonna call it show off. There's people who want the world to know that they're auditioning to X, Y, Z, A, B, C. They want everybody to know where they're auditioning, and they want it to be heard like well. Like they want everybody to know. I am not that person. I will audition and not tell a single soul. Like honestly, the only people that typically know that I'm auditioning are my roommates, my housemates, my professors, the people I asked for references, maybe Hannah. Because Hannah wasn't my roommate, right? Maybe Hannah. Even Hannah and I have an understanding for each other. It's kind of like we tell each other things when we're comfortable. And there's reasons for that. I feel like some people want to know where you're auditioning for good reasons, like Hannah and I. But then there's people who don't. There's people who want to do it to be nosy, to judge you, and to influence your decision. The people who want to influence your decision, that one's a little gray, right? Because that could be both good and bad. But the nosy people and the judgmental people, I don't want y'all to know my business. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how else to say that in a kind way. But it's like, it's annoying. And then there's also people who ask it and they're oblivious as to why we don't want to share it. And I told a friend this actually yesterday. I said, you know why I kind of like lie to people about my audition process? It's because it could go two ways. It could either, so the question is, have you heard back from any schools yet? First of all, how did you know I was auditioning? That means someone's already talking because I didn't tell you, right? But when you ask people, have you heard back from any schools yet? It could be an answer, yes, I got accepted. Or the embarrassing one, no, I got declined from all. Or my top choice, or whatever it may be, right? Some people keep it to themselves in the instance that things go bad. Yes, things could go bad for both Hannah and I too. Like, you never know what the professor's decisions are. Like, we don't determine that. We put forth our best efforts in the audition, but ultimately, we just don't know what's gonna happen. And people like me, I keep it private for all of those reasons I listed, to be honest. There's not one that really stands out. It's all of those reasons combined that I keep things private, and I keep it amongst my inner circle.
And I think you said something really valuable in the last one too, Alex, where you said, consider why you want to know. If you want to know because you're asking after the person's like well-being, just ask, how are you? And they can say, I'm feeling really good about my playing and myself today, or I'm having a really bad day. And then you can say, I'm sorry, do you want to come over and watch Bridgerton? Like, that's how you can help them
Yes,
out,
yes,
right?
I do.
See you there. But yeah, consider why you want to know. And if it's so that you can measure your own ability against that other person, then that's not healthy. That's not healthy for either of you. So just take a pause before you ask. Think about why you want to know. And if it's for a positive reason, like wanting to be there for them, just ask how they are, because that can change day to day, like literally hour to hour. That can change when you're going through the
Literally.
audition process. Like, there were days when I would wake up and I'd be like, oh, feeling so good about my future. And then like by afternoon, I was like, that's it. I'm a mess. Not doing any of it. I can't do it.
And I was just telling a friend this. I said there was one day this semester where, I tell you no lie, 4 to 5 people asked me, you auditioning for grad school? You heard back from any grad schools? Why was that the first thing out of your mouth? Why was it not, hi, how are you, like Hannah just said? This is not a conversation starter. I'm sorry to break it to some people. It is not a conversation starter, because not only does it make me stressed, but two, I'm not an open book. Like, I really am not. I feel like as we're filming this, no one knows I've auditioned. No one knew I was auditioning unless I told them. And I could count that on less than 5 fingers in terms of like classmates. No one knew. Like, how are y'all finding out?
Alex, if you had to give one piece of advice, maybe like think back to whenever you were in my shoes to little Alex, all right? If you had to give little Alex one piece of advice for pursuing her master's and going through the audition process, what would it be?
I mean, apart from the privacy thing, I think the biggest thing, and I think this is what I said last time too, it's ask yourself why you want a master's degree or ask yourself why you want a DMA. Does this align with your future plans? Do you want to be a teacher or a higher ed professor? I'm thinking like general, there's obviously more. Or do you want to be a performer? Because if you want to be a performer, there's a thing called a performance diploma, is it, right? That's what it's called, I think. And
Yeah.
that's probably what you need, right? It's more difficult to get, but that's the point because your end goal is to be a solo or orchestral performer. So think about why you want the degree. Like, don't do it because your friends are doing it because it looks trendy. No, if you don't need it, don't do it because it's expensive. So remember to ask yourself that.
For
What
sure.
about you?
If I could blast back to fall semester, beginning of fall semester, I would just tell myself to be confident. There is not a day that goes by that I don't feel like an imposter. Like, wait, really? Like, am I really, really good enough for this? No, just be confident. You are. Like, you've made it this far. Obviously, it's going to be fine. We talked about this last time, but I had this mantra that I just kind of like spoke to myself every day or each audition day to like manifest positive energy. But it is you are confident, you are capable, you are strong, and you are prepared. All
How
right,
do
you
you
are
do
strong.
that?
I don't know. I'm just fancy that way.
Ow.
You are confident, you are strong, you are capable, and you are prepared. So I would just tell myself that, like, everybody is feeling like an imposter. Everybody questions themselves. You're not alone in that. So just be confident and own it. Don't be so doubtful of all the preparation and all of the, all of the things that you've done to get yourself to this point. Yeah.
That's powerful. It's funny because when she said that the first time, I literally said, whenever I do like a performance or an audition, I tell myself the first thing is you're confident. You've practiced and you know this, and just do it. And it's so funny because me and her never discussed this, but when she said it, I was like, I say the same thing. So it's official. We're twins. Thanks. Bye. Thanks for
Lindsay.
coming to my TED Talk.
Well, that concludes the very first 1.2 episode or
Oh,
1.1,
1.1.
1.1
We're not
episode.
that bad. We're not
Yeah,
that bad.
I don't know. We haven't seen this one yet. So
Oh no.
no, it was fine. It was fine. So thanks for watching, guys. We're so appreciative of your support of our little duo project that we've started this year. So thanks for all of the love you have thrown our way. We're having a great time, if you can't tell. So thanks for listening, and good luck to all of you who are embarking on that audition journey. You got this.
Also, I want to say, like, if they have any topic suggestions, send it to our Instagram. Plug us now.
Yes.
Plug us.
Absolutely. Follow us at Venn Duo on Instagram, at Venn Duo. If you have questions for us, if you have comments on this episode, or things that you want to hear us talk about, or you want our hot take on, let us know. DM us and let us know. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day. This has been the Venn Pod.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. The Venn Pod.
The Venn
Wait,
Pod.
the Venn Pod.
The Venn Pod.